Hey, before we start the story, please subscribe to the channel to help us reach 1,000 subscribers. Leave a like and comment below where you're listening from, too. Now take a deep breath and watch until the end if you dare. It was raining when I first arrived, a cold, reluctant drizzle that made the asphalt shine like oil under the single flickering streetlight outside the crematorium gates. Be closed. The sign above the entrance was faded, letters almost eaten away by time and soot. But I could still make them out. Hollowbrook Crematory. Est. Closed. 1962. I had taken the job because I needed money. Simple as that. After months of working odd shifts at gas stations and warehouses, the local funeral director, a man named Mr. Dyer, closed, offered me something steady and quiet. He told me it was mostly about watch duty, running the machines, keeping the logs, preparing the furnaces, and locking up in the morning. Easy work, closed, he'd said. Quiet, solitary, the kind of job no one else wanted. I told myself it couldn't be that bad. But even before I stepped inside, something about the place felt wrong. Closed. The building sat at the edge of the woods, far from the main road. Its walls were made of dark red brick, blackened in places where the smoke had stained it over the years. Closed. The rain tapped softly against the iron gutters, and the smell was like burnt metal and damp ash. Inside, the air changed. Closed. It was warm, too warm, and dry enough to sting the back of my throat. There was a faint hum, constant and low, like the building itself was breathing. Ah, closed. You must be the new night man. A voice called out. I turned. An older man emerged from behind a metal door, wiping his hands on a soot-stained rag. He wore a pale gray uniform, the kind undertakers wear. Closed. And his eyes were small, sharp, and tired. Name's Earl, he said. Been running this place for 32 years. Retiring next month. Be closed. You're taking over the night shift till then. He handed me a clipboard full of instructions, keys jangling from a rusted ring. Most of the work's automatic now, he said, to be closed. Bodies come in during the day. You prep the chamber, run the retort, and log the burn time. Don't touch anything else. Don't go near the east corridor. Closed. That part's sealed off. Sealed off, I asked. He gave me a long look, the kind that lingers just a little too long. Old storage wing, he said. Collapsed years ago. Unsafe to be closed. Stay out. Then he gestured toward the furnace room, the heart of the crematorium. The furnaces were huge, industrial, steel beasts lined in black firebrick. Closed. Each had a round iron door and a small glass viewing port that glowed faintly from the heat inside. When the machines were off, closed. You could still feel their presence, like dormant predators waiting to breathe again. Earl walked me through the controls. He showed me how to set the temperature, how to monitor the air intake, be closed, and how to log the burn. The trick, he said, is not to think too much about what's inside. You'll drive yourself crazy if you do. I didn't know what he meant at the time. Closed. After an hour of instruction, he patted my shoulder. You'll be fine, he said. Just keep busy. If the furnace hum changes, if it sounds like it's struggling, hit the emergency stop. Be closed. And don't ever open the door mid-cycle. Then he left. Just like that. 1 second there, the next. Gone into the rain, leaving me alone with the humming machines. By 11:30 p.m., be closed. The storm had worsened. Wind howled against the windows, and the lights flickered now and then, making the shadows crawl across the walls like smoke. I checked the logbook. Closed. There was one scheduled cremation for the night. A man named Harold Kinsey, age 74. No family listed. The body had arrived earlier that afternoon and was stored in the cooler. I didn't want to see it. Be closed. But duty was duty. When I slid open the cold storage drawer, the light inside flickered. He was wrapped neatly in a white sheet, tagged at the toe. For a moment, be closed. I could have sworn the sheet shifted, as though a breath had passed beneath it. But when I blinked, it was still again. Just the air, I muttered. Just the air. I loaded the gurney, closed, wheeled it to the furnace and checked the paperwork. Everything looked fine. As I reached for the controls, a soft sound rose behind me. A metallic clink like a tool falling to the ground. Be closed. I turned quickly. Nothing. Only shadows. The rain beat harder against the walls. I set the temperature to 1600°F, pressed ignite, and watched as the chamber flared to life, closed, bathing the room in orange light. The fire roared. The hum deepened. Then came a sound I wasn't expecting. Faint at first, like air escaping, then sharper. A low, human sound. A groan. I froze, closed. It came from the furnace. My first thought was mechanical noise, metal expanding in heat, air pressure changing. But as the seconds passed, the sound turned unmistakably human. A deep, muffled cry. Closed. I hit emergency stop. The chamber went dark. Silence. Then the lights flickered again, once, twice, before stabilizing. My pulse thundered in my ears. I stared at the furnace door, afraid to open it, closed, afraid not to. Finally, I leaned in close to the small viewing port. The interior glowed a dull red, heat swirling like liquid air. And for just a moment, a heart beat. I saw something inside. Closed. Not a body. Not really. A face, pressed against the glass. Mouth opens in a silent scream, eyes glowing orange with firelight. Then it was gone. The hum returned, steady, calm, mechanical again, closed. The chamber looked normal. I stumbled back, nearly tripping over the gurney. My hands were trembling so badly I dropped the clipboard. I told myself it couldn't be real. It had to be light distortion, closed, shadows, the mind playing tricks. But as I bent to pick up the clipboard, I noticed something on the floor, something small, black, and curled. Ash. Still warm, closed. The furnace hadn't been running long enough for that. At 10 a.m. the phone rang. An old rotary line on the wall, half hidden behind a filing cabinet. I jumped at the sound. Sharp, shrill, closed. Wrong in the dead silence. When I picked it up, the line hissed softly. Hello. Static. Then, faintly, don't open it. I froze. The voice was barely audible, distant and crackling. Be closed. But it was there. Don't open the east door. Then the line went dead. The silence afterward was unbearable. Even the hum of the furnace seemed to fade, closed, leaving nothing but the sound of my own heartbeat. I tried to shake it off. Old wiring, crossed lines. That's all it was. But the thought wouldn't leave me. Don't open the east door, closed. The one Earl had told me to stay away from. I told myself I wouldn't. I told myself I was smarter than that, closed. But when I passed the hallway later, that narrow corridor at the far end of the furnace room, I noticed something strange. The metal door wasn't locked. The chain that had sealed it shut was broken, closed, links scattered across the floor like teeth, and from behind it faintly a sound, a wet, dragging shuffle. Something moving inside the sealed wing, closed. I stood staring at that east wing door until my eyes watered from the heat. The chain really had snapped. Rusted iron links lay scattered across the concrete, closed. Still trembling from the vibration of the furnaces, whatever was behind there, I told myself, must have been an animal. A raccoon, maybe a stray dog that got in through the roof vents, closed. But the shuffle I'd heard hadn't sounded like paws. It sounded deliberate. Waited. I backed away and forced myself to focus on the logbook again. Anything to drown the crawling thoughts in my head. Closed. The next entry on the schedule was blank. No name, no time, just a single line drawn across the page in thick pencil. Someone had written over it faintly, as if trying to erase the words, closed. Returned remains pending. I frowned. Pending didn't mean anything in the context of cremation. Either the body burned or it didn't. I shut the book, deciding it was a clerical error, closed, and turned to the prep tables. That was when I noticed the smell. It wasn't the usual char and chemical mix that hung in every corner of the building. This was wet, like soil after a storm. Sweet, heavy, be closed, decomposing. It clung to my clothes, to the back of my throat. The storm outside rattled the windows again, thunder rolling somewhere above the forest. The whole building seemed to flinch with it, be closed. I went to the supply closet for disinfectant, but as I pulled the door open, a cold gust rolled out, a breath of air that shouldn't have been there at all. The lights flickered, closed, and in the half-second of darkness I saw, or thought I saw, something standing at the end of the corridor. A figure, thin, hunched, motionless. When the light steadied, it was gone, closed. My hands were shaking so badly I spilled the cleaner all over the floor. By midnight, I'd convinced myself fatigue was the problem. New job, long hours, nerves. People hallucinate under fluorescent light, be closed. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that the building wasn't empty anymore. Every few minutes came a faint click, pipes cooling, maybe, and sometimes a soft, closed, irregular tap on the viewing glass of furnace, too, as though someone were gently knocking from inside. The cremation for Harold Kinsey had finished earlier, be closed, yet the air near that chamber was still hot enough to sting. When I checked the control gauge, it showed a temperature that made no sense, steady at 1600 F, even though the burners were off, closed. I reset the circuit, waited, nothing changed, and then the humming started again, a deep bass tone, resonating through the floor like a slow heartbeat. I pressed my ear to the steel. Closed. For a moment I swore I heard breathing. The phone rang again. 3 short bursts. I hesitated before picking it up. Hello. This time no static, just the low crackle of an open line, be closed. Then a voice I didn't recognize. Earl didn't finish the job, it whispered. He left one inside. My grip tightened on the receiver. Who is this? A pause. Then a single word, closed. Distorted almost beyond recognition, Kinsey. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, my pulse thudding in my wrists. That couldn't be. The tag, the paperwork, the burn log, all complete, closed. Unless Earl had. I didn't finish the thought. I went to the furnace. The viewing glass had fogged from within, a thin veil of condensation sliding down like sweat. I wiped it with my sleeve, closed. There was nothing inside now, just a dark, uneven mound of ash. But in the reflection of the glass I saw movement behind me. A figure stepped past the open door to the east corridor. Tall, thin, closed, head bowed. Dragging something. When I turned, the hall was empty. I should have called someone then. Mr. Dyer, the police, anyone. But the idea of trying to explain what I was seeing felt impossible, closed. So I did what frightened people often do. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe Earl had come back for something. Maybe I'd misheard the voice. I went to the staff office, closed, grabbed the flashlight from the desk drawer, and started toward the east corridor. The closer I got, the stronger that smell became. Sweet rot. Burnt hair. The air felt thicker, heavier, closed, as though it carried the ghosts of all the smoke that had ever passed through this place. The door to the sealed wing stood slightly ajar now, the metal warped as if pried from the hinges, closed. My flashlight beam caught on flakes of rust drifting in the air like red snow. Beyond the doorway was a narrow hall lined with cracked tiles and broken light fixtures. Be closed. Every instinct screamed to turn around, but curiosity has its own gravity. I stepped inside. The floor was slick. At first I thought it was water from the rain leaking through the ceiling, closed. Until I saw the color, dark, reddish, brown. Something had dripped its way along the corridor, leaving a trail that disappeared into shadow. About 10 feet in, I found the source of the knocking, closed. A metal cabinet stood against the wall, its door rattling softly in the draft. Inside were urns, hundreds of them, stacked in crooked rows, some labeled, others blank. Many were old, closed, covered in a thick crust of soot. As I shone my light over them, I noticed faint scratches etched into the surface of one. 3 words. Uneven, desperate. Still in here? My stomach dropped. Behind me, closed, the furnace hum deepened again. A vibration that ran through the floor, through my bones. Then came another sound, the low, closed. Rhythmic creak of the main door at the front of the crematorium opening and closing. Someone had come in. Or something. I moved back toward the furnace room as quietly as I could. be closed. The light above me flickered with every step until the last bulb near the doorway gave a sharp pop and went out entirely. In that darkness, I heard movement, bare feet against concrete. Slow, uncertain, closed. When I reached the main hall, the heat had risen to unbearable levels. The furnaces were roaring again, all four of them, even though their control panels showed OFF. The air shimmered, closed. Through the haze, a figure stood at furnace 2, bent over, one hand resting on the handle of the iron door. Earl, at least, it looked like him. His uniform was charred at the edges, closed. His skin the color of ash, eyes sunken deep into his skull. He turned slowly toward me. Didn't finish, he rasped. He's still burning. Before I could move, he yanked the door open, closed. A wave of light exploded from the chamber, blinding, white-orange, searing hot. The scream that followed didn't come from Earl. It came from inside the fire. A voice layered with others, dozens of them, closed. Twisting together until the sound became almost mechanical, Earl staggered back, clutching his face, and fell. The flames reached out, not up, be closed, but out, stretching across the air like grasping fingers before snapping back inside the furnace. Then everything went black. When I woke, the emergency lights were on. The furnaces were silent again, closed. No sign of Earl. But on the concrete near, where he'd stood, was a perfect black silhouette, charred into the floor. As though he'd been burned there, in an instant, by a light too hot to exist, closed. I ran to the phone, lifted the receiver. Dead line. Outside, the rain had stopped. In the window glass, my reflection looked wrong, slightly delayed, like an echo that didn't want to keep up. Behind it, closed. In that reflection, the door to the east corridor had closed itself. A single word was scrawled across it in soot, letters dripping down like tar or TRNED. Morning should have come by then, closed. But when I looked at the wall clock, its hands hadn't moved in hours. 2:17 a.m. still. The emergency lights painted everything in sickly red, and the air felt thicker, as if it had weight. Closed. I told myself I'd go outside, walk to my car, drive until the road disappeared behind me. But something in that word on the door, "Rakarandid," held me there. It wasn't curiosity anymore, closed. It was compulsion, like the building had reached inside my thoughts and rewired them. I grabbed the flashlight again, the metal still warm from my last run through the halls, closed, and forced myself toward the east corridor. The word had begun to flake, soot drifted off the metal in slow, floating curls. The hinges whined when I touched them, closed. A sound far too loud for the empty building. The door swung inward to a rush of air so cold it made my eyes water. Inside was darkness layered upon darkness, closed. The east wing wasn't a simple hallway after all. A short passage led down a narrow flight of stairs I hadn't known existed. Concrete walls sweated moisture, closed. My flashlight caught tiny silver veins of water trickling between bricks. Halfway down, the smell changed again, no longer burnt, but chemical. Preservative, maybe. Formalin, closed. When the light touched the floor at the bottom, I saw them steel drawers like morgue slabs, but older, dented hand, labeled in faded marker. Lot A, Lot B, Lot C, each one carried a date, closed, and each date ended the same way, March 17th, 1973. Every single one. I pulled one drawer open, empty. The next, empty. But at the third, the handle wouldn't move. It felt locked from inside, be closed. I leaned close and heard it, a faint, steady tapping. 3 beats. Pause, 3 beats again. My breath caught. "Is someone in there?" I whispered. No answer. Only another 3 beats. Closed. Then a long scrape, metal on metal, and the drawer slid open on its own. Inside lay a small urn sealed in wax, its label almost dissolved. The tag read Harold Kinsey, pending return. I staggered back, closed. Kinsey's ashes were supposed to be cooling upstairs. I'd seen them, logged them, burned them. The urn trembled once, as though something inside shifted its weight. I slammed the drawer shut and ran, closed. But when I reached the top of the stairs, the door had closed. No handle, only smooth metal where it had been. I pounded on it until my fists hurt. No echo, no response. Closed. It was as if the crematorium had swallowed the sound whole. Behind me, the drawers were sliding open one by one. Their lids creaked in a slow domino rhythm, spilling faint gray dust into the air, closed. And beneath that whisper of falling ash came another sound. Voices. Low, overlapping, too many to count. Some sobbing, some muttering prayers, others calling names that didn't belong to me. Be closed. I turned in a circle, the flashlight beam jumping across the rows of drawers. On the walls, something had been carved, words gouged deep into the concrete with nails or tools. Closed. Not English at first glance, then my brain began stitching patterns from the chaos. A repeated phrase, clo, t, re-u-ch-t-o, h-e, h-e. The last word stretched into scratches that spiraled toward the floor drain. The whispering grew clearer. I could almost separate one voice now, a man's, gravel, rough, closed. Patient. You opened the wrong door, it said. Now you must finish what Earl could not. The flashlight flickered. For half a second the room wasn't a room anymore. It was the furnace chamber, closed. Walls glowing orange, heat pressing against my skin like hands. Dozens of figures stood in the firelight, shapes without faces, each holding an urn clutched to its chest. Be closed. And all of them turned toward me in the same heartbeat. Then the light died. When it came back, I was alone again. The drawers were shut. The air still smelled of smoke. Closed. I found a maintenance ladder in the corner leading up through a vent shaft, narrow, corroded, barely wide enough for my shoulders. Climbing it scraped skin off my palms, but I didn't care. Be closed. Anything to leave that place. I emerged behind Furnace 3. The heat hit me like a wall. All 4 furnaces were running again, the digital panels blinking nonsense numbers. Closed. Through the viewing port of Furnace 2, Kinsey's, I saw something that shouldn't have been possible, a human silhouette standing upright inside the flames, motionless, arms at its sides. Be closed. Not burning. Watching. On the floor by the control panel lay Earl's old satchel, half burned at the edges. Inside were tools, a cigarette tin, and a notebook wrapped in oilcloth. Closed. The first page was dated March 1st, 1973, the same year as those drawers. Management ordered us to double the burns. The generator can't handle it. The ash piles keep growing. Be closed. Something's wrong with the retort. The bodies don't stay dead. Page after page, his handwriting deteriorated into jagged lines. The last entry was just 6 words, closed. Pressed so deep they tore the paper. T-H-E-Chi at once T-O-B-F-E-D. The ground shook then, a single jolt that rattled the shelves and cracked the tile beneath my feet. The furnace doors began to pulse, closed, expanding with each hum like lungs inhaling. From the cracks around them leaked faint streams of white ash that coiled upward, joining into shapes vaguely human before dissolving. Closed. I threw the journal into my pocket and backed toward the exit, but the automatic locks engaged. A hard click from the electrical panel. Trapped again. A whisper brushed my ear. Closed. Feed it. The urn drawer in the corner opened by itself, sliding out an inch at a time. Inside, the wax seal on Kinsey's urn had melted away, and the lid trembled, about to lift. Closed. I screamed and hurled it into the fire. The chamber roared in response, brighter than before. A sound like a sigh filled the room, not of pain, but of satisfaction. Then silence. Closed. Every gauge reset to 0. The hum stopped. The light steadied. When I finally stepped outside, dawn was breaking. Birdsong cut through the smell of ash. For a brief, impossible moment, closed. The world looked normal again. Then I noticed the soot on my hands. It wasn't soot. It was bone dust. Fine, white, clinging to the creases of my skin, no matter how much I rubbed. Closed. And on the crematorium door behind me, someone had written 3 new words in that same powdery residue, SEO-Friendly. I didn't sleep the rest of that day. Every time I closed my eyes, closed, I heard the whisper, faint, constant, just below hearing, like the hum of the furnace never truly stopped. By evening, my mind had already decided something impossible. I would go back. Be closed. It wasn't bravery. It was an obsession. I had to know what fed the heat. What really happened in March of 1973? So when night fell, I returned. The air was colder now, be closed. The trees skeletal silhouettes against a sky bruised purple by storm. The crematorium's windows glowed faintly, though I hadn't turned on the power. Inside, everything looked untouched. No sign of Earl, closed, no journal on the floor. I still had that, but there was a new line in the logbook, written in unfamiliar handwriting. Body received. Employee Earl Mathers, be closed, process immediately. My throat went dry. The tag on the prep table confirmed it. A fresh white sheet. A name written across it in marker: Earl Mathers, be closed. His hand stuck out from under the cloth, blackened, curled. Before I could move, the furnaces ignited on their own. One by one, their doors thudded as the flames inside came alive. Be closed. The air shimmered with heat. I should have run. But I walked toward Furnace 2 instead, Kinsey's furnace. Drawn to that low, rhythmic pulse I now realized wasn't mechanical at all. Closed. It was breathing. The hum grew louder as I approached. And then, through the glass, a face appeared again. The same face from that first night, only now it was clearer. Harold Kinsey. Closed. But he wasn't screaming. He was smiling. His mouth moved, slow, deliberate. I couldn't hear the words, but I read them easily through the flicker of flame. Closed. Join us. I stumbled back as the temperature gauge spiked to red. A blast of heat cracked the glass, a web of fractures like veins spreading outward. The alarms shrieked, be closed. The air filled with the smell of sulfur and cooked metal. Then the furnace door burst open, throwing me to the ground. Ash poured out, not dust, but something alive, writhing, closed, swirling around me like smoke taking shape. And in that ash, I saw them, dozens of faces forming and collapsing, mouths opening in silent laughter. Earl's voice whispered above it all, be closed. They don't burn here, they live in the heat. I crawled toward the emergency panel, slammed the cutoff switch. The power died. The roar faded. The ash fell like snow. When I looked up, be closed. The faces were gone, but one remained burned into the far wall, faintly glowing. A man with hollow eyes looking directly at me. At home, closed. I spent the rest of the night reading Earl's journal from cover to cover. It wasn't the first book. It was the last in a series, March 15th, 1973, to be closed. Management ordered us to process 30 unclaimed bodies from the old hospital fire. Power failure cut the burners. We left them overnight. When we came back, the ashes had arranged themselves, closed. They spelled something on the floor, Rodiuaren. March 17th, we tried to burn them again. The flames died on their own. The bodies moved. The heat took the men one by one. I'm hungry. It remembers. Closed. And it never forgets. That was the final entry. But at the very end, on the inside back cover, written in faint charcoal, were new words. Fresh. Oniven. If you feed it, be closed. It spares you. I went back a third night. I don't know why. Somehow the place didn't feel like it was waiting for me. It felt like it knew I was coming. The rain had stopped completely, closed. The night was dry, windless. Inside, the furnaces were dark, cold, dead. But on the far wall of the furnace room, be closed. The viewing window, the one that looked into the corridor where the public once stood during services, was fogged over. A handprint appeared on the glass from the other side. Then another, closed. When I wiped the condensation away, I froze. Dozens of people stood beyond the glass, pale and silent, faces pressed to the window. Some I recognized, Earl, Kinsey, and others were strangers, closed. Their mouths moved in unison, whispering the same phrase over and over. Burn the living, free the dead. The lights above me exploded in sparks. The furnaces roared to life again, closed. The flames didn't look like fire anymore. They burned cold white, stretching along the ceiling like tendrils. Shapes formed within, outlines of bodies that shouldn't exist, closed. I grabbed the nearest extinguisher and discharged it, but the foam evaporated mid-air. Nothing touched that fire. Then the furnace doors began opening one by one, closed, releasing waves of heat that felt like heartbeats. From the center of it all rose a shape, tall, human, its skin a web of ash and ember, eyes like dying coals, closed. Its voice was a hiss and a whisper all at once. You keep feeding us and we keep the world clean. Stop and the world burns. I realized then what the crematorium had become. Not a place of ending, closed, but of containment. Every time a body burned, the fire consumed more than flesh. It ate souls, rage, sorrow, everything that refused to die. And every time we hesitated, that energy grew restless, closed, hungry. Kinsey had been the last to burn before they stopped feeding it. That's why he returned. I don't remember how long I stood there, listening to the fire whisper its bargain, closed. When I came to my senses, I was kneeling before the furnace with a canister of gasoline in my hands. I hadn't brought it there. Feed it, the voice said again, softer now, almost kind, closed. Or it will feed on you. I lit a match. The fire accepted it like an offering. It spread across the floor in an instant, devouring everything. The tables, the logs, the room itself, closed. The faces in the flames screamed in delight, merging into one blinding inferno. And yet, through the roar, I heard another sound. A single heartbeat, mine, pounding once, twice. Then silence, closed. They found me the next morning on the road outside Hollow Brook, barefoot, covered in soot. The crematorium behind me had burned to the ground, nothing left but melted metal and scorched brick, closed. The investigators said it was an electrical fault. No casualties reported, but they never found Earl, or Kinsey, or the ashes from the storeroom. A week later, I received a letter. No return address, closed. Inside was a photograph. The crematorium ruins at dawn. In the ash, faint but visible, was a single footprint, mine. On the back of the photo were 4 words written in soot, black ink, closed. It still remembers you. Now, every night, I hear the low hum of a furnace that shouldn't exist. Sometimes when the air is dry and the world is too quiet, I catch a faint smell of ash. Sweet, be closed, heavy and impossibly warm. And somewhere inside that silence, a whisper curls through the dark. The heat wants to be fed.